Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smarter Support, how AI can strengthen Main Street and the small business ecosystem. My name is Natalie Madeira-Cofield, President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. For more than 35 years, AEO has worked to strengthen the organizations that power small business growth across the country. From community lenders to business support providers, advancing inclusive entrepreneurship and expanding economic opportunity on Main Street. As we mark that milestone this year, we're thinking carefully about what the next chapter of small business support must look like and how emerging technologies can strengthen, not weaken, trust-based relationships. Artificial intelligence is moving quickly. AI is reshaping how businesses find customers, manage cash flow, access capital, and make decisions. And while the headlines often focus on big tech and large institutions, the real question for our economy is this: will our nation's smallest businesses and the organizations that support them be able to harness these tools responsibly so Main Street benefits from this shift rather than being left behind? At AEO, we believe the small business ecosystem has a critical role to play right now. Business support organizations, community lenders, and community-based partners are not just service providers. You are trusted intermediaries, translating tools into outcomes and turning innovation into real opportunity for entrepreneurs who don't always have the time, capital, or capacity to experiment. That's why today's session is intentionally focused on implementation, not hype. We want to focus on what's working, what's challenging, and what responsible adoption looks like in practice, including the guardrails that protect trust, privacy, transparency, and human oversight. At AEO, we are also pairing with convenings that discipline that learning. In partnership with PayPal, we're testing how responsible AI can strengthen diagnostic and coaching workflows, not to replace human relationships, but to make them more effective and scalable. We'll be sharing lessons from that work as we go. Today, we're grateful to be joined by an outstanding group of leaders who bring complementary perspectives across the ecosystem, from intermediary adoption to lending operations to the builder infrastructure view of responsible underwriting and automation. We're also grateful for partners who believe that responsible innovation must include Main Street. PayPal has been investing in inclusive entrepreneurship for years, and more recently in how emerging technologies can strengthen, not sideline, small business owners and the organizations that support them. It's my pleasure to welcome Jordan Medina from PayPal to share a few opening reflections before we move into our moderated discussion. Thank you again for being here, and I hope you find today's conversation both practical and energizing.
Thank you, Natalie and AEO, for having me. My name is Jordan Medina, and I work at PayPal, where I lead small business impact partnerships. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Today's conversation is about real-world impact, not hype. We're here to explore how AI can expand inclusive growth by giving more small businesses and ecosystem partners access to powerful digital tools. When used responsibly and paired with valuable hands-on support, AI isn't just innovative, it's practical, accessible, and empowering. PayPal's goal is simple: to help small businesses not just adapt, but truly thrive in an AI-enabled economy. I'm excited to learn what's working and where there's room to grow from today's conversation, and I hope you all are too. To kick off today's conversation, I'd like to welcome Lori Smith, Head of Research and Insights at AEO, to the call. Lori, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And thank you as well to PayPal for your partnership with AEO and for joining us today. That framing really sets up today's conversation well, because our goal is to focus on what is actually working in practice for ecosystem partners and where the opportunities are. Here's how we'll spend the next 40-ish minutes today. So first, we'll have quick introductions. Then we'll have a look at how each organization got started with AI. Then we'll look at where AI is really adding value in technical assistance and lending. And then we'll get very clear on risks and what human oversight means in practice. And we'll close with practical advice from each panelist. But as a reminder, we will also take a couple of questions in the audience at the end of the discussion if there's time. So please drop any questions in the Q&A box. We would love to hear from you. So joining us, we have Bulbul Gupta from Pacific Community Ventures, bringing the intermediary and entrepreneur serving lens. We have Megan Snyder from Unitas Community Credit Union, bringing the on-the-ground small business lending and member trust lens. And then we have Darby Dorlia from FundMe AI, bringing the builder lens. So what's working across community lenders and business support organizations and what it takes to deploy in the real world. And so with that, I will turn over to each of you for just quick lightning introductions. So Bulbul, please very briefly introduce who you are, what you do, and why this matters right now.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm Bulbul Gupta. I'm the president and CEO for Pacific Community Ventures. We're one of the country's first impact investment funds, very much started to help invest in underestimated entrepreneurs who were creating good quality jobs in their communities. We're based in the Bay Area and serve entrepreneurs California-wide with our capital. And then nationally, we're also a CDFI in California doing small business lending. And then nationally, we do our good jobs work, business advising, and technical assistance work. And for us, our AI journey really started with a focus on data analytics and impact measurement. How are we deepening our own commitments to understanding what's working and what's not working for our small business owners who are often lower moderate income entrepreneurs serving lower moderate income communities or and they are often folks, because we're a CDFI, who are left out of traditional access to capital. So from an impact measurement perspective, how are we deepening our data analytics work? We added a voice AI product to get qualitative feedback. And then in the last year, we have actually acquired the AI startup we were partnering with for the previous 4 years to deepen our own algorithm work trained on our own lending data so that we can get to yes with more underestimated entrepreneurs faster. So I think just big picture, very, very deepening the mission alignment and the use of ethical AI and responsible technology, all in the service of how do we stay on this innovation and equity journey to get to more underestimated entrepreneurs and low and moderate income workers at scale.
Great. Megan, same, can you share very briefly who you are, what you do, and why this matters?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Megan Snyder. I work at Unitas Community Credit Union. I'm the Chief Impact Officer there. We support members in the state of Oregon and Washington. And my role really is to ensure, working across the organization, that we focus on our mission as much as we work on all the other aspects of banking. So in short, I really support ensuring that in the actions we take, we focus on return on mission and return on investment. I also get the opportunity to support community development, financial wellness and education, and our strategic initiatives that look at sustainability, DEI, and multicultural support. So for this discussion, one tool we've used to really help remove those barriers and support all in our community is AI, and that continues to emerge. And so I'm excited to give a use case of how that's been successful, and then also learn from others today on how we continue to lean into it.
Great, perfect. Darby, same.
Hello, my name is Darby Dorlia, and I am CEO of FundMe.ai. We acquired a BCA Culture, formerly known as BCA Culture, in which we actually started out on the small business side with matching small business owners with funding called technical assistance, but we built a software that leads and guides entrepreneurs in obtaining funding, whether that's line of credits, whether that was grants. We helped over 10,000 entrepreneurs secure over $300 million in funding over the past 5 years. And then as a result of that, we were acquired by FundMe AI, in which our focus is now focused on CDFIs. We build out true AI-powered loan origination systems, voice agents, anything AI. We build that out for CDFIs and banking institutions and large corporate enterprises. And then we still serve our small businesses with us transitioning or pivoting to FundMe. What we're doing is that we are just incorporating AI into our funding match tool, in which we're launching April of 2026. so that small businesses can continue to be matched with grants. And also now with the advancement of agents, those agents can also start applying and filling out applications as well with human in the loop, which I know we'll talk about that later. But that's who I am, and that's what our organization stands for. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for the invite.
Thank you. Well, I want to start with how this all actually began in each of your organizations, because I find that the first steps usually reveal key opportunities and implementation issues. So, Bulbul, you said that your AI work started with data analytics and impact measurement, as well as governance. Could you tell us about the problem that you were trying to solve back then when you got started?
Yeah, so just before I came into PCB about 6.5 years ago, I had helped co-start an ethical AI think tank in Berkeley with a neuroscientist who was actually the AI expert, and I was the behavioral economist by training coming in, really helping to think about where has AI played out in concern when we're thinking about underestimated communities or low and moderate income communities who don't yet have a voice in the ownership or design in AI sufficiently, but it is being used to design decisions about them, right? So the more we can understand where it's applied in criminal justice and hiring and education and financial decision making, the more we can then think about on the impact investing side, and that's where I spent the previous 10, 15 years, how do we then deploy impact investing at scale? So coming into PCB, which had both impact investing roots with the CDFI doing small business lending and the impact measurement focus, the better we can understand how we can use responsible technology and AI tools to understand what's happening in our own data, right? How do we design our lending or our technical assistance to serve entrepreneurs better? Whom are we seeing get to the wealth building outcomes that we're designed to help them get to? And the more that we can then segment our data, understanding for what type of customer and small business owner is this working for to get to wealth building outcomes, and for which types of customers is it less working for, the better we can then design customer journeys, matching the right product and the right service at the right time. So that's really where our work started with this data partner about 4 or 5 years ago. And then with our data governance working group internally over the last couple of years, really thinking about what are the safeguards we want to make sure we have in place, right? As a lender and a CDFI, we want to make sure we're not putting personal data into AI tools. So really trying to design the governance model with which we were going to apply or not apply AI. And we can talk about that a little bit further. But for us, that's really where it started. So we published some work around good jobs journeys using that segmented analysis. We have started to design, right, how then do we want to add value in the lending side? How do we want to contribute value on the business advising and mentorship side? But that's really where it started for us, around worker voice, if we care about good jobs, and making sure we were strengthening feedback loops, both between workers to business owners and business owners to us, so that we were really understanding the lived experience of all the way to the worker level that is our intended impact outcome.
Fantastic, thank you. And now, Megan, can you share us, what made AI feel necessary for Unitas's small business lending program?
Yeah, so to go back 3 or 4 years, small business lending and focusing on truly building out a department to support that was something that we knew we had a big need for. Before we introduced our AI solutions, and even before we started talking about just looking at adding a team, we had been approaching lending the same way, no matter if it was a $15,000 small business loan or a $5 million commercial loan. We had the same process for every single loan. And that just isn't sustainable, practical, or something we could afford. So we truly weren't doing small business loans. And that's a common story for most credit unions. We don't have the size, capacities, or bench strength to support these types of loans. So they either live as a consumer loan or we refer them out, which is a gap. We're not meeting the needs of our members who are committed to serving. So we had decided back in 2020, 2021 to really focus and commit to this. And we spent 2 or 3 years building out a roadmap, building out the list of products, building out the number of employees needed to underwrite, process, even have business development before that step, to really create programming people and systems to support small businesses. But again, with this roadmap built, we understood that it was a large mountain to climb, and it was quite a large expense operationally to hire and support the system. So that was the gap we had, which is there's a lot of small business members that need capital and we couldn't provide it. And yet there was this deficit of the need and the cost to support it, as well as just the people and expertise. And that's what led us to lean into AI and really look at solutions out there. And we found a wonderful one in Judy AI, and that's the tool we use today. But that's the story of where we were and why the need was there. And again, we're one example, but I would argue that it likely lives in over 90% of credit unions out there, just between capacity and affordability.
Great. Thank you. And I think this framing of how much it matters from lending is very helpful. Darby, from the builder side, what did you see in the field that needed to change?
Yeah, absolutely. So my engineering team, I mean, we have in-house engineers, and so they're the geniuses behind it. Myself and our team, we're like the think tank, and we saw a lot of missing gaps on. I can speak from both sides. So from a small business perspective, for businesses that were seeking capital, they would go on like the learning language models, ChatGPT, Gemini, and go search for, funding that's available. What are the most common grants that are available? So they're using that now as like a search engine. And so what we noticed was that there's a gap, because not every grant, not every funding opportunity, not every funding product is available on these platforms. They're limited in the information that they're able to, dispense. So what we recognized was that the need and the demand for knowing what products are available, knowing when due dates are, knowing what grant opportunities are out here. Just for the small business entrepreneur, they just wanted to know, where can I find the information? And so we built our application to be able to serve that market, that is the underserved market, whether they have access to information, access to utilize AI, or maybe they're a startup business owner and they just don't know where to begin to find funding. Then our app comes in and fills the gap for that. And then on the CDFI side and the enterprise level, what we really begin to realize was that there were gaps in like SOPs and operational processes, a lot of repetitive copy and paste, a lot of spreadsheets, and a lot of the organizations desire to be relationship driven, but they were limited by their capacity, as Megan was sharing earlier, and as Bubol was sharing earlier, that the limit of the capacity and being able to reach people is what inspired them to even start, researching alternative solutions and leveraging AI. And I say leverage because there's been such a taboo such a taboo topic, like, it's going to replace white collar jobs, or, it's going to, replace your position. And I always say that it will enhance what we're doing. If we look at it from a responsible way, it can actually increase our capacity and allow a lot of organizations to be more efficient, and also allow us to increase our capacity to serve. So those are just the two perspectives from a small business side that actually we saw that was missing in AI. And then from a CDFI and an enterprise level, just repetitive work processes that could be automated. Most work that's being done, about 70%, can actually be automated. And then the relationships can be optimized, where there's a customer, relationship that can be optimized, whether it can be internal teams and operations that can be optimized. AI can be used as that silent assistant for every single person in your organization, so it can make what they're doing much simpler.
Absolutely. So with all of this, I'm hearing a common thread. So, highlighting the importance of increasing capacity, but also, like, you all started by asking, what's really happening for our clients, and most importantly, who is this working for? So with this foundation of your why, I'd like to move to the where. So like, where is this actually helping in your work step by step? We'll dive in a little bit deeper to what you've shared already to get really concrete areas or ways that AI has made a difference and to better understand what's changed and what it's replaced and what needs to stay human. So Bulbul, let's start with you. And can you pick a couple of areas where AI is actually changing your support model or an active pilot and on the lending side, and then also on the technical assistance or the business advising side, and walk us through each.
Yeah, happy to. And I'm actually going to pick up on two comments that Darby made. So one, we've actually had a couple of clients who found us as a CDFI small business lender using ChatGPT or Claude. And we always ask clients like, oh, how did you hear about us? Because, CDFIs don't have digital marketing budgets like, sorry, Jordan, fintechs do. So we always want to know, especially if they're coming in from a referral partner, et cetera. And it was so insightful. It was like a year and a half ago to see the list of prompts and the answers and responses. And I think it was really gratifying. I was like, oh, this actually portrays like TCV values and mission in a depth that I think it was new to our lending team. Like, oh, people are actually finding us through this. So to Darby's point, it's interesting because now, these chat models are a ambassador for how you represent yourself digitally. So how do you manage your digital presence? How do you then make sure that if folks are finding you through that, they continue to have a good seamless experience in the rest of how you do what you do, right? So on the lending side, I'll start first at the other point that Darby was making, which is that we have been very intentional in making sure that our ethical AI policy, and I'll drop it into chat in a little bit, is very intentional about centering human in the loop, or we, kind of use Salesforce's phrase for human at the helm, because we really want to portray that the human lending underwriters are the decision makers. We are not trying to displace them or their mission alignment, their training to actually make the lending decisions. What we're really trying to do, because we deploy capital as rapidly as we raise it almost, we want to make sure that we are increasing efficiencies in paperwork, in being able to scrape and analyze data from applications to help inform an underwriter's decision. And in having trained now our first ever predictive algorithm trained on our inclusive loan data, right, we wanted to be very intentional that we weren't bringing in algorithms trained on what is considered successful in traditional finance, which is the whole point of why CDFIs were created, which could very easily disrupt 30 years of gains in this field, right? So what does it look like to train an algorithm on our data, where 90% of our capital over the last several years has gone to entrepreneurs of color, women, low and moderate income communities, all of the sort of mission of our field. And we've done that now for 2 or 3 CDFIs. And it's estimated to save about 25 to 40% of staff time on a lending team. And with that kind of time and cost efficiencies, we can get to yes faster, right? We can get more of our humans to human harder is what we kind of call it internally. How do we make sure we get out there more, we get out to community events more, we build trust more with entrepreneurs who might be in that gray area and get more people to yes. So we're really trying to balance it from both a cost efficiencies and time perspective, and supporting scale of our portfolio is estimated about 20 to 30% year-over-year growth over the next 5 years. On the technical assistance side, what we have done is start to really understand with our business advising national platform and our Good Jobs toolkit, based on the research we've done that I was sharing earlier about our customer segmentation, what have we learned about what kinds of journeys work well for entrepreneurs to access high quality advising and the right Good Jobs resources? How do we then intentionally start to pilot generative AI processes that could help more customers, small business owners coming in, wherever they start, whether the BA platform or the Good Jobs Toolkit, be able to meet them where they are and keep them on customized good jobs, financial health journeys. And so that we are just starting to pilot building into our new BA platform and our new Good Jobs Toolkit that we're launching this year. But it's really coming from some national good jobs research we've done over the last 2-3 years of running a good jobs community of practice. So that is now in pilot mode. The Impact Lend algorithm and platform has now been built. And then lastly, I'll just say, I think I mentioned it earlier, but the voice AI tool that we've also pioneered and acquired really helps us to get the qualitative side of the feedback in any major language spoken in the world. So if you think about where the bulk of low and moderate income entrepreneurs or workers are, being able to actually hear from them in their own natural language in a voice AI app that can do both sentiment analysis of their language and how are they feeling about the quality of jobs in their business, as well as actually do the synthesis to get you qualitative feedback you can use, whether you're giving that back to the small business owners that those workers represent, or to help inform other customer serving insights with CDFIs or entrepreneur serving organizations. I think those are sort of the three things where we're really seeing it add value and are testing the next iterations of.
Thank you. It's very powerful to hear like how much of an impact this had on your capacity. And then as a researcher myself, I truly love, this example of how new approaches to collecting and using data and getting better data can really make a difference. And so excited to follow how your work evolves through this pilot. Megan, let's talk about what changed for your members. Can you, walk us through what changed from their perspective and anything that mattered as much as the model itself?
Yeah, so I mentioned we came to Judy AI and an AI solution through just really trying to solve a need. But we wanted to solve a need for the members too. So before we selected a solution, we really asked the question of what's the journey like today and how can we both create more operational efficiencies, but also make a better process for our members. I think you're going to keep hearing the theme of AI, which is, I don't want to say removing low value actions because, ensuring that a loan is underwritten and that financials are strong are important. But if it can be automated and then that person, that employee can be used to actually connect, develop, and build upon relationships, that's high value and can be the time that's saved can be set aside for something else. But nevertheless, our research showed when we were looking into this and also just having some member focus groups that on average, 85% of small business members applying were denied. And when we dug in further to that and asked, what is this? What part of this? It was really just the application in general. It was getting the large stack of financials required. Most small business owners work 7 days a week. So even if they had the financials, which they don't necessarily always have and have organized, like 2 years of profit and loss and taxes and so on and so forth, many haven't even applied current taxes necessarily. They don't have the time. And so it wasn't even about the denials. It was more about the abandonment of applications. And so that number was just, goes against who we are as a financial institution committed to community. So our first goal was really how can we change that number and invert it and create a better solution. So what we loved about Judy AI was not only it was operationally efficient for us, it was for the members too. And so instead of having to provide multiple pages and documents for financials, their application time went from days, weeks, and eventually abandonment or denial to a matter of minutes, which was just changed everything for the member and the journey. So to be able to cash flow underwrite these loans and to do it so efficiently, we had this giant roadmap that I referenced and all of these employees and products. We were able to hire one director of small business lending. And prior to that, we had funded a handful of loans. And last year, this one employee funded 127 loans. And so we were able to really, truly make a huge difference. And I have my notes here, for a total of $2.6 million in total lending last year versus, the barely 100,000 we met in years prior. So the impact was not just on us, but it was on them as well. And it's just such a gift to be able to reverse that. Now we approve over just under 80%, around 79% of loans. And even the ones that we aren't able to say yes to, we have a program and a local CDFI we refer to. So now we have a complete journey that's inclusive with barriers removed for members and makes all the difference. One last thing I wanted to say about AI, and again, going back to just Darby talking about stories written about AI, that we keep saying and have these fear about. A lot of people will ask, well, Megan, does Judy AI deny loans? It's like, well, yes, it does still do the job, right? There are some members that it has to say no to, but it says yes to far more in a fraction of the time. And these are good loans. They're performing, they're strong. And so, again, it's allowed us to just completely change our business model and, more importantly, the lives of our local small business members in such a positive way.
Thank you. So yeah, what I'm hearing from this is really powerful example of how this isn't just about AI, but also about, fewer steps and most importantly, aligning with who your mission and who you want to serve. And on that note, I'd love to hear, what you're doing to support entrepreneurs who may not be ready for traditional financing.
Yeah, so to add to that, the other piece that we learned when we were researching, what brings us to these denials, what's the cause? We also heard in our member focus groups that before, when we said, hey, we can't help you, but these people can, there was this feeling of still a no, or, oh gosh, now I'm going to have to do this again. I'm going to have to get financials again. So we've created a really strong partnership with a local CDFI called Business Impact Northwest. And so they have the technical assistance and funding available to really help members that aren't quite ready for traditional financing. So for those small business members that need capital, but they just don't have all the pieces together yet, this nonprofit provides them technical assistance, one-on-one business coaching, support, education classes, and it also has capital and funding provided by credit unions. So Unitas lends and provides capital to Business Impact Northwest, and then they underwrite the loans for these members with the goal of eventually graduating them back to the credit union. So even the ones that we can't say yes to, they still have a pathway to a yes and a program that they can be wrapped around to eventually graduate them back to traditional financing, which is the goal. But they're able to provide more one-on-one support than we can as a credit union. And in this way, we're still able to follow along their journey, be there to support any of their other services, and have a really good partnership with a local nonprofit as well. So much so that they have a team here in the Portland metro area, and we offer one of our offices in our building to them once a week to meet with clients as well.
I just love seeing this recognition of, how critical hands-on support for business owners is, and how it's, about just as important as access to capital, as well as the importance of partnerships, and especially in this moment. Darby, from what you're building and seeing across a range of organizations, can you tell us about, two key workflows where AI can truly make a difference, one in TA and then one in lending operations? And you gave us a high-level hint, but I'd love to just get some really concrete examples as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So with one of our partners, our CDFI partners out in Arkansas, they're one of the largest CDFIs. And what we did with them, they approached us about building out their actual technical assistance program. And at the time, they were on the verge of potentially losing credibility because their previous one required a lot of human interaction, in which their previous TA providers were not able to provide that just because of the area that they serviced, which was mostly rural. And they were demanding, instead of a more digital interaction, they really wanted more in person and more face-to-face interactions. So what we did was that we optimized and completely tore down the mindset of everything has to be in person. We were can we do majority online and still be able to get them to their end goal, right? Which would be to be able to qualify to get funding. So one example that we did is that we automated their intake processes, their business diagnostics. When the applicants were coming in, we automated their application process. They went from barely having, I think in a year's time, 12 people applying just because they were still manually doing a lot of processes. And at this particular CDFI, their staff was stretched. So this wasn't always a primary thought, right? So what we did was that we automated it. And in the first 3 months, we were able to have over 120 applications coming in from real business owners to fill those 30 seats that they had available, which was like night and day. So we automated that intake process. Also, from the application, we trained the AI in the background to recommend who would be stronger candidates. So that way their team and their C-suite executives will be able to look at it, and their stakeholders will be able to look at the reports and know the impact. Also with that, the TA providers would be able to have a business diagnostic that was a mini write-up about each business. And it also did KYC verification, identity verification on the business owner, and just checked and make sure that everything was aligned and that the information that was on the application aligned with what was across different databases online. And so that's one example. I wrote these down so I can stay on task. With that, we were able to identify any gaps, information gaps. Maybe someone was under bankruptcy and they weren't aware or they didn't disclose that information. Our AI was able to capture that, so they wouldn't sneak into the program. Also, it could flag indicators. Maybe their DTI, their debt to income, was too high for the program. Maybe they had the cash flow coming in, but there were other hidden things. So the AI that we built for them was able to detect that. And so that's on the technical assistance side. It made the program much more efficient. They were able to lend over that year over $5 million in funding. We combined some of the products that they offered as a CDFI, as well as some of the products that we already had in our system as well, since we automatically were matching them. And so we were able to produce that. But then on a lending operational side, what we ran into, and Megan hit on this, was with the underwriting. There were a lot of manual processes. We didn't realize how many underwriters are still, completing credit memos or copying and pasting information and putting them in credit memos. And so we didn't realize that gap until we were introduced to that world. And we got into that because of our work in the technical assistance space with CDFIs. And so it just naturally evolved in, can you all build this out for us? And we're like, yeah, we can build anything that's truly AI driven, but we have to know your workflows. And I think if you're a small business owner, if you're a CDFI here, with your policies, it's important to know your workflows, because the technology can only do as great as you give it the workflows to do it. And that's where we're always going to have human in the loop. So the second case was with operations, the document collection, analysis of their applications. The AI can automatically do that and give recommendations to the committee, because for some CDFIs, committees have to approve loans that are going out. So it was automatically able to send out recommendations, email the committee, send text message to applicants, let them know what documents were missing. If there's anything that was too high that didn't meet the underwriting matrix, then the AI would automatically sort those applicants and say, hey, these are the ones that are, strongly recommended. These are maybe, and these are not right now. They need more technical assistance, right? And so with that, the CDFI is able to now know, okay, who do we need to spend majority of our time with? And now they also know that now we have leads for a technical assistance program because they're seeing the gaps that they can fill. So those are just two examples of how we've helped companies implement AI and how those are real use cases that are happening right now. And I can say this for the AI SEO. I'm so glad that you brought that up. This gets me excited because, right now we know digital marketing and we know Google and we know Bing or Yahoo, SEO. But if you're on this webinar, count it as a jewel. I'm going to tell you all this. AI SEO is now. Your organizations, depending upon how well you train it, how well you're, appearing on searches. Your organization can appear directly in Gemini. Your organization can appear as a recommendation directly on ChatGPT. Like the playing field has leveled even when it comes to marketing. And so write this term down. It's called AI SEO, and see how you can get that in your organization. I know a credible company, they provide, they're called Infusion Agent. You can reach out to them. They provide that. But if you're on this call, like, that is such a gem. Many people are still trying to get rankings on Google and all these other search engine optimization or search engine search engines, excuse me. But if you're able to optimize, which is SEO, search engine optimization, I was getting it confused there for a minute. If you're able to optimize your SEO, which is where you can be found organically and naturally suggested to your target market, then you are like, that is half the battle when it comes to marketing. So definitely, see how you can enhance that. And that's another use case, making sure that your digital marketing for your business or your CDFI, that you're able to get in front of your target market at the cheapest cost available.
Thanks so much, Darby. And I see that we need to have a follow-up to dive in deeper on AI SEO, but I agree this is like very promising, and especially when we turned on, where to go for support and access to capital, it's really exciting. So yeah, overall, what I'm, hearing is that, there's the value of getting information more efficiently and more effectively into the hands of business owners, as well as business coaches and advisors. And so now I'd like to, talk more specifically about the parts that you don't want automated and why, and, into some of the guardrails and governance that you've built in. So Bulbul, let's start with you. What are PCV's non-negotiables for responsible AI, and what does that look like in policy and in practice?
Yes, and amen, Darby, on AI SEO. You know how some of us Google ourselves from time to time, see what kind of results come up, or used to when you thought about that, and understanding again how your organization shows up is a really good way to have it working for you from a lead gen perspective. So in terms of guardrails, again, we have been sort of slow burning this for about 4 years inside PCV as we revamped our technology stack, introduced AI tools. So there's 5 or 6 sort of main principles that we think about when we're thinking about the guardrail use, go, no go, in terms of decisioning for where we would use these tools or not. Most of it is, I think the AI policy was shared in the chat. So most of it is in that document. And it's something we're going to be updating each quarter, given the rapid pace of change in AI tool development. One is sort of applying a version of what doctors commit to in terms of do no harm. It's really hard to promise do zero harm, right? What we're trying to come from is how do we make sure that we are not using tools in a way that would do any version of disproportionate harm to any specific demographic, community, or client segment. So we want to make sure that data we use to train our algorithms and our AI tools is actually trained, like using demographically disaggregated data to train the tools to make sure that they are learning proportional demographic use and decisioning in the underwriting and workflow processes. So again, part of why I was sharing earlier, we want to be careful not to bring in outside algorithms that aren't necessarily trained on thinking about inclusion intentionally, right? Second, if staff are using AI tools which we want to encourage experimentation, right? But how do we create our own sort of mini version of a regulatory sandbox within our institution to encourage experimentation, but safe experimentation? So one, no client data, personally identifying data can be uploaded into any AI tools or agents. So we have to make sure that those data sets are kept separate to protect our client PII data, and something we commit to with other CDFIs we partner with, et cetera, to help them, train their own algorithms or use our services. Two, if staff, or three, if staff do use it, to make sure that they disclose in their work product where they use AI tools, whether it is in writing or in code development, and that we're tightening up even further in the next level of this policy with our machine learning engineer team. And then I think the main piece I kind of mentioned earlier is really in thinking about not replacing underwriter staff and our team that's been trained on mission, values, how to help meet small business owners where they are. So Darby talked through a lot of this, but just in terms of like document collection, process improvements, efficiencies. And so we want to make sure we're committing ourselves to not replacing our lending staff and not replacing human decision making, but very aligned with what Darby was describing, is helping you get to yes faster, helping you get to no faster, and really being able to spend a lot more time on the maybes, getting more people to yes, or using our technical assistance, our businessadvising.org platform, to be able to then get them capital readiness support. We have folks for years who will often use our advising platform and then come back and are ready for the next size check, right? When they may not have been when they first applied. So exactly, it helps to drive a tighter alignment between the lending team, the advising team, and we published this policy mostly because we wanted to make sure we were holding ourselves to a high level of accountability and launching the CDFI industry's first visible public AI policy. And also, if we're partnering with organizations on the BA platform for the lending, for the algorithm development work, we want to make sure that partners know what to expect from us and where their data will be kept private, secure, de-identified, and that this is really coming from our experience as an operating mission-driven lender as well, so that they build more trust in what they're partnering with before they sort of work with AI vendors of different kinds. So those are sort of the big picture takeaways in terms of the guardrails we designed. We'll probably publish our next version next month, I think, as we're updating it right now with our machine learning team and some of the new agent tools that are out. But those are probably the big ones that I think are worth sharing here.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And thanks as well for sharing the AI policy. We'll be sure to share that in the recap as well. Megan, your world is, performance and member trust, and, you're accountable to both. So in your experience, how did you validate AI decisioning before you scaled it? And what do you monitor now to stay confident?
Yeah, good question. I love the mention of an AI policy. So that's something Unitas developed maybe a year or two ago, around the same time we were looking for a solution. So we recognized quickly that AI was emerging, but we needed to have a policy and be grounded in that as we went to explore solutions. But when we came to Judy AI, what we were looking for is how we approach many lending options. So there was a few things we considered. The first is that it at least is tried and true. There's a lot of emerging solutions out there, and especially AI solutions, but we want to make sure that the data in and the data out has been practiced enough so it's something that we can feel confident in. Because again, as you said, our goal is to meet the members' needs, but our responsibility is to protect the membership. And so how do we do that and find a good solution? Judy AI was developed and supported by a very large credit union in the Vancouver, BC area, Van City. So it had already been in practice through a number of applications. So we were able to be more confident in that solution than in others. The second need we had was we wanted to make sure it supported small business. For those that have a lending background like I do, solutions that work really, really well for consumer does not work well for business. And solutions that work really well for business are not meant for consumers. So we wanted a solution that was meant and built for small businesses, and this is one of them. So again, it's a solution where the information data understands a small business owner and the type of loans we were trying to support. And then lastly, we really approached this with a crawl, walk, run approach. Again, AI is newer for Unitas, especially with underwriting and processing. And so for us, our first contract with Judy AI was really for them to just review the financials. So human in the middle was most certainly still a part of this, so much so where we were reviewing the financials alongside of it. We had no other API or connectors, no formal decisioning. We were putting the information in and reviewing the output. And what we found was it had really good results. So we did that pilot approach for a solid 3 months. And then we proceeded on to do a full contract. And so much so now that a year later, we are now fully integrated in our commercial LOS and onboarding system at Brigo. But I would say, have a policy that you're grounded in before you start is critical. And then second, ensure that it's tried, true, and it meets the needs. And for us, our comfort level with this was really to ensure that we could crawl, walk, and run. In the grand scheme of our portfolio, it's small exposure, but reputationally and other aspects is large. And so we wanted to make sure that if we were to say and outwardly market that we are available and ready for small business members, we wanted to make sure that we had a process that supported them and our credit union. So I would say we've seen great success, and it's mostly word of mouth. We haven't even truly fully marketed this yet. We plan on doing that run part of it in 2026 and hopefully onboard one more person. But that approach worked well for us. The last thing I'd mention is one thing we really liked about Judy AI is it's established, but still learning and growing. And so through onboarding Judy AI, they also welcomed us as a seat at the table. So we're able to be a part of their monthly and quarterly meetings. And we have an ear to give feedback on the solution. So as we're practicing it, as we're getting member feedback and participation, we're able to share out what's working well and what's not, and be a part of any growth and roadmap. And so for us, that's important too, as we really approach this, is to know that if there's feedback, solutions, or recommendations, that we have an opportunity to influence it. Really established LOSs, really established vendors and software solutions, they will say, oh, we'll put it on our roadmap. And I greet that with a large eye roll, because in 6 years to never, it might happen. So in being able to actually influence an emerging solution is really powerful to ensure that it aligns with our values and our members. So that's how we approached it, and it's worked really, really well, and they've been a tremendous partner.
Thank you so much, Megan. From your experience and how well it's worked out, having feedback, it's making me think of procurement, how organizations can approach procurement. Darby, one concern we often hear about is AI washing as well, and so how there's a lot of solutions that come up that may not automate as much as we think it does. Can you tell us how you're seeing that show up in this space, and what would you recommend for vendors to help reveal how well a solution will work for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I immediately saw it overnight. So AI has been brewing publicly, maybe been picking up steam over the past few years, past 2 to 3 years. And so immediately just started seeing people saying AI powered, or now we're doing AI marketing, and now we're doing, AI technical assistance, or you would just AI powered loan origination systems. And you would begin to see this and I look at their solutions. I'm like, now this isn't really AI. And one of the things that I do want to say is that the AI washing is a term that it appears, or they're maybe using language that it might be AI driven, or that it might be AI powered. But one thing that I can say as an organization is that when you're looking at real AI powered solution, is you want to ask yourself this particular question: what specific task is this AI eliminating? And that's how you'll know, how it's eliminating work from your staff, how it's eliminating work from you, and then measure that over 30 days. And then you'll be able to really know if it's truly an AI tool that's actually replacing work, right? Or that's actually replacing manual work. So just to put that out there, so you can really, understand if a task is not getting eliminated, right? Then that is not a true AI solution. Tasks must be getting eliminated or at least being enhanced and decrease the workload at least by 50%, so that you can really see the solutions working.
Thank you so much. And now I realize we're just about out of time, so I'm going to jump to a lightning round of, key takeaways. So I'd love to just close with one takeaway each. What advice would you give to organizations exploring AI in their operations? Bulbul, let's start with you and keep the order.
Oh no, I was hoping you'd come to me last as I generate my nuggets of wisdom. I think lots of good stuff has been shared, and Darby just shared some really good advice in thinking about vendors and process improvements. My experience, as a CDFI CEO and with a lot of peers in my field, it's one more thing that CDFIs have historically not had capacity to do, funding to do, and suddenly you have to figure out a tech or AI strategy. So I think that governance of AI and how we bring in technology and build our digital infrastructure really has to be a conversation at the top between boards and C-level staff, because all of these tools, explorations, if you don't have a culture of some version of innovation or a digital conversation where you and your board are ready at the senior leadership, whatever other improvements and efficiencies that your staff or teams might be bringing to you can die a fast or slow death, right? So I guess from my perspective, one advice would just be talk to other peers who have explored some version of AI in their organization and think about where you can start, because there's enough now to start to pull from. It doesn't have to be just scary and intimidating.
Thank you. And Megan, same for you.
Yeah, I would say to really fight the stories that have been written and continue to be written about AI, and just really understand what the solution is and isn't. Financial services in our industry was built to keep some in and many out. And the solutions and many solutions have the opportunity to break those down. So, loan origination systems in particular are meant for W-2 employees. And that is just such a smaller and smaller group of individuals that just have one W-2 job. So to be able to lean into a solution like this and to be able to explore it and really understand what it is and isn't can truly make all the difference in accessibility and wealth generation for people. So I would just fight the stories in the way you've always done it and really look at what it is it can do.
Thank you. Darby?
So what I would advise to organizations, if you're planning to utilize AI, of course, have your guardrails and your policy. Also, make sure that you are working with companies, especially if you're on a corporate enterprise level, that offer enterprise grade security, whether they're SOC 2 compliant, whether they're ISO compliant, just making sure that you're also using tools that are SOC 2 and ISO compliant as well, because they meet the standard quality for security and protecting your data. If you're a smaller organization, you can definitely still use SOC 2 tools as well and work with companies that are focused on SOC 2 and ISO. So that covers security and making sure that your information is private. If you are not working with machine learning engineers or developers or AI learning engineers or developers, maybe on particular tools that you want to develop, then of course, utilize what I just advised. Tools that are already created that have SOC 2 compliance. There are a lot of AI tools that are popping up now, but they might not be enterprise level or enterprise grade security. And so you just want to make sure that those are in place. Number two, when you want to utilize AI in your organization, think of your most manual workflows and work on eliminating those first. Think of the tasks that require you the most time or require the most energy. We built out an email agent for a CEO of a CDFI. She was just bombarded with emails, and it was just amazing to see when we went through it, she processed like 24,000 emails in a month. We were able to build out her drafts for her. We saved her so much time. If there were meetings, because she traveled so much that she missed, that we were able to summarize those and send those notes to her. And so it was a lot of other different things, but for her, that was something that was really pressing, was I need to have something that can automate my emails. And you'll be amazed when you find those manual tasks that is a requirement of your job, but it's also like time consuming. Try to eliminate those through AI and let AI assist you on that, so you can gain so much more of your time back. And so just today or throughout the week, just think about those tasks that maybe your staff is doing that could possibly, that's very manual, that might be redundant or also tiresome to your staff, that can be replaced through AI. And then begin to find solutions or ways to implement that. And just remember that AI should expand your capacity and not decrease trust with your staff or with the people that you serve. It should actually increase it. So thank you all for the panel, and thank you, Dr. Lori, as well. And it's been a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bulbul, Megan, and Darby. This was a really fascinating look at the different ways that AI has been integrated to improve outcomes and improve support for entrepreneurs. And I really appreciate how practical and honest you kept the discussion. Thank you all as well for joining us in the audience. And, if we take one thing away from today, to the panelist point, start with an AI policy and design for trust. Thank you again to our panelists for grounding us, and to all of you on the call who are supporting entrepreneurs and community businesses every day. We look forward to taking today's insights back into AEO's ongoing learning work, including our early stage business health assessment pilot, and sharing practical guardrails and implementation pathways for the field. And we've also shared a link in the chat for organizations interested in joining AEO's AI Innovation and Policy Coalition for Main Street businesses, focused on practical, responsible approaches grounded in Main Street needs. And we'll also share, a recap with the recording to all registrants, along with many of the resources that our panelists have shared. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we look forward to staying connected.